Gayatri Mahamantra with your back straight, both hands upon your laps. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yonah Prachodayat. Invocation of the Divine Master, Adi Guru Muni Ved Vyas. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Sakshat Par Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Akhand Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Shri Guruve Namaha. Vyasarupena Avahayami, Sthapayami, Dhyayami, Pujyami, Tato Namaskaram Karomi. Shrimed Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 9, Slok number 28. Royal knowledge, royal esoteric understanding. This particular shlok is in the background of previous two shlokas, wherein the seeker has been suggested by the timeless master to submit each and every outcome of any deed to Krishna, means Almighty. Submit everything. Simply submit everything. Everything means conclusivity in absolute terms. Nothing left beyond that, no residual, nothing. Everything inclusive. Your day-to-day dispensation, your professional obligation, your familial interactions, your ups and downs, your success and failure, your anxiety, fear, your hope, your happiness, your distress, everything. Submit before Krishna everything. Don't keep anything confined to yourself. Nothing. Even the way you worship and whatever you worship should also be submitted without seeking any outcome. Why is this being suggested? Now it becomes clarified in this particular verse. Let's go down to the verse. Here it is before you on the screen. It conveys Shubha Shubha Falai Evam Moksha se Karma Bandhanahe Sannyas Yoga Yuktatma Vimukta Mam Upashyasi. Good and bad outcome thus emancipate from karma bondage. Thus, as an outcome, emancipates from outcome of good and bad karma bondage. This thus an outcome is in the light of the previous two verses. Being born with the renunciate insight liberates, and one shall reach me. And reach me, I have taken a literal translation of it, Mam Upashyasi, and the seeker shall reach me. Now, here we have to understand this word evam, which means thus as an outcome. What does it mean? Thus as an outcome. Thus as an outcome has to be rightfully understood. It means that when you keep nothing confined to yourself, anything and everything is submitted, then what happens? There's an outcome. You are not there prone or vulnerable to the law of action and reaction. Understand it this way. When you act, you perform any karma, there is an expectancy associated with it, but obvious. Who beholds the expectancy? I. You or me, it's I basically. And for example, just for the sake of imagination at this moment, later on it has to be the reality. For an imagination's sake, you don't exist in between. What do you mean to say? If I don't exist, then who is going to perform karma? No. Here, the you or the I is the one who owns the ownership. When you are there as the owner, as the karta, as the doer, obviously each and everything is going to be enjoined with it. What all? Success, yes. Failure, yes. Enviousness, animosity, lust, greed, competitiveness, whatever. You go on naming. You go on naming. Each and every instinctive impel is going to be enjoyed with that. To the moment you exist as the doer. And for example, if you are removed from there and each and every act and its outcome is submitted before the Almighty, not you, but the doer, then what will happen? To imagine this initially is slightly difficult because right from the moment we have opened our eyes and we have gained our senses in this world, I have done the work and I've taken down the responsibility to do the work. Whatever the outcome has been, I have taken responsibility of it. If it was a failure, I was held responsible. If it was a success, I was rewarded. So this I was everywhere. Whenever I even imagined nothingness, even then I said, I was experiencing nothingness. Even those moments of nothingness, there was I in between. There have been not a single moment when I could imagine I not being there. If I am not there, then who else is experiencing? So I has to be there. So I hold or I is held closely. It is held close to the chest because it is the only hinge upon which I am hooked. Hooked, not in the bad sense, but in the sense that I am enjoined, associated, I am attached with all my dispensations to only one, the doer, I. If I don't exist, then that's the beauty of this particular verse. It wants the seeker to diminish I in between. Is that easy? If I don't exist, then who else? No. It says, you're doing the work, yes. You're obviously trying to accomplish whatever the objective has been given to you professionally or in the familial terms, yes. Can you for a while imagine that you don't exist? Everything is being done through you, and all of its outcome have been submitted before the Almighty. Difficult to imagine. But yes, if one has to hypothetically understand, one can certainly imagine so that I don't exist. Whatever is being done through me is being submitted to the Almighty in a positive sense, in a rightful manner. Not that you perform some bad act and then take and carry back an excuse. I followed the verse of Bhagavad Gita, I was not doing it. Then be ready for its outcome also. That also is going to be there. Then don't cry with that pain of misery. Oh, I'm pained by the outcome. Can you withstand total immunity even then when you are under pain, under distress, confronting the outcome of your bad deeds? No, you won't. At that moment, you will say, I am being pained. I am under pain. So let this imaginary exercise be very righteous one. Remove yourself, your identification when it comes to the outcome of your deeds. Remove the doership. And the moment you remove your doership, you as the doer, and submit everything and anything before the Lord, before Krishna, all positive outcome, all negative outcome, each and everything submitted. Then what happens? You become immune to the impacts of action and then reaction. The karma bandhana, the karma bondage is not there for you anymore, imaginary, but the ultimate immutable fact which cannot be mutated. Because any good deed which you do accrues you for the benefit as a punya, that means credit points. Any bad deed that you perform accrues towards the bad outcome, karma bondage, suffering. Obviously, because you're doing it. You're doing it with some objective. Your objective could be even to get punya, that is good points, and even for the punya realization, to fructify your punya, to cherish your punya, to encash your punya, you have to manifest again, which means that you are not out of the entrapment of life and death. You are very much there. You may go on saying, I performed noble objectives. I was all there. My benevolence was without any boundaries. I was all there to help each and everyone. Through each falling breath, I was doing good to all because I wanted to do good. As an outcome, yes, good points came. Now you must cherish the outcome of the good deeds also. And that means again another birth. What if you do anything and everything, your professional obligation, familial interaction, wherever, whatever you do, but you remove your I ship. I ship is not a word, but I've coined it. Your doership or your I ship. You remove it from there and say to yourself with all firmness, steadfast, that I am not there. Everything is submitted to the Murlidhar, the Krishna Almighty. Then what happens? If it is observed from the depths of your heart, if, very bold if it is observed from the deepest ends of your heart in the most rightful manner that you diminish, you end your doership in between and submit each and every outcome to Keshava, then you're relinquished from the impacts of action and reaction, karma and bandhana. Now, what happens? You go on doing, and you are in a zero gravitation, where there is no gravitation to bind you of the karma bondage. You're out of it now. You're totally out of that now. Nothing will come to bind you, nothing will come to hold you anymore. You're just out of that now. Can you imagine that? Well, maybe at present you may simply imagine that. But go on imagining, extend it slightly more. What if it starts happening with you as a normal affair in your life? Then what will happen? Well, even to imagine, it gives you a sight of deep pleasure initially, but may not last long because under the strong impel of Maya, the delusion veil cast by the Almighty's program, plan, divine connivance. This is a transient observation, may not last long. We may affirm right this moment that I am going to submit all my doership at the lotus feet of Keshava. But the moment I come out of this kind of a spell of Gita's lesson, then what will come? I'll come back to my ordinary conduct. Gratification will again become the rider. I shall be doing anything and everything for an outcome, and my doership will not vanish. It is going to stay, irrespective that karma bondage is going to be there. I know that. Even I am not out of that. But this is the only way through which one can ultimately emancipate. To come out of the entrapment of this cycle of birth and death, one has to perform each and every act. Has to perform means you cannot evade your mandatory obligations, even that is a karmic bondage, subject of karmic bondage. You have to perform that. But even while performing, if you're able to observe such a strong insulation that you don't seek anything as an outcome and submit everything before the Lord, then you're out of the impel of the vicious cycle of birth and death. You are on the path of emancipation. You shall emancipate. That is what is being said here as evam. Thus. Thus means as an outcome of the previous two past two verses, which recommend any seeker to submit anything and everything to the Lord. All outcomes submitted, good, bad, pleasant, unpleasant, success, failure, all submitted. Dogmatic, I know, but once you start practicing it, even in a transient manner, what happens? Gradually, this belief will hold some ground. And a day shall arrive wherein you will be able to live it to certain extents in each passing day, if not throughout the day. And that is the moment when, in Upanishad word, the Sad, Upanishad, Sad, it fructifies, which means to loosen. The grips of the Maya, the grips of the delusion, they loosen. The loosen may be to a decimated extent or to a little more extent, may not vanish, may not dissipate, may exist, but it fructifies. And that is how evolution or inner growth comes to any seeker. It's not like happening like this. No, it is a gradual process. It's an ongoing journey happening gradually, that we loosen the grip upon those gratifying seekers within, which are the motivating factor for us to do anything and everything, seeking an outcome. But we loosen the grip upon them, and then we are on the path to emancipate. If not emancipate immediately, but we are on the path of that. That is what the first line of this verse conveys. The second line conveys a term sannyas yoga yuktatma. What does sannyas yoga means? Sannyas means renunciation or what? Renunciation of any and every outcome of your karma before the Lord Keshava. That is renunciation over here. Renunciation should not be understood to renunciate yourself from your mandatory dispensations. No, it clearly means, and this is an interpretation given to us by the exalted one Adiguru Shankaracharya, renunciation here means to detach yourself, disassociate yourself from any and every outcome of your karma and offer it as an offering at the lotus feet of Krishna. That is renunciation, sannyas. What is yoga? Yoga here means karma yoga. Karma yoga, yes. Karma yoga means eliminate your doership and now simply perform all karma. Go on performing all karma. Such karma, when performed with total disassociation from doership, becomes yoga. Until that moment, it is not yoga. Karma is a bandhana. That is, karma is a bondage, binding. From karma binding to karma yoga, The path moves from disassociation from any and every outcome of the actions. Action binding and action yoga. It goes through what? Renunciation from each and every outcome of your actions. That means, as a renunciate, whatever you do will be karma, but yoga, enjoyment with the higher consciousness, not karma for binding, not action for binding, but action as yoga for enjoyment with the higher consciousness. That is what it says over here, it conveys over here. Sannyas yoga yuktatma, one who is born with such a conduct, whereby submitting everything to the Lord, shall emancipate and come to me. Come to me? Shall there some another part of the journey start after that? No, nothing of that kind. Come to me here has to be understood. You shall realize what exactly or what in actual or what the truth is. You yourself is the infinitesimal part of the God. You are the tiny God. Self-realization. Come to me means you will realize what you actually are. So far, the veil of ignorance cast upon your understanding or insight has always bereft us to even gauge a proximity of this truth, which actually we are. But now, the moment we disassociate from the outcome of the karma, action, and reaction, we will get immune to the impacts, and with the gradual process we will exhaust our past karma bandhana, our past karma bondage, and then without creating any further bondage, because after that we will be living, we will be in the body, we will be doing everything, but yet no outcome will come as a binding upon us. We will emancipate even while living in this, on this mortal plane, within this physical dimension. That is something big to take away, big deliverable. And this also conveys to us that to become a renunciant does not in any way mean that we have to change our garb or we have to undergo any change in our names. No. Wherever this has to transpire, it is at the ends where there is no name and there is no form deep within us. So, those who think that unless you change your garb, unless you change your name, you are not a renunciant. For them, they should come out of this misnomer. They should not misconstrue the understanding of sannyas and yoga. Let it be clear for them at their depths. Sannyas means where you disassociate your doership, submit to the higher consciousness. Yoga means where you perform all your mandatory obligations and yet remain immune from their outcome, from the impulse of their outcome. That, that aspects of gratification, when you are out of that, you are a sannyasi, you are a yogi. This is a big clarification which we must take. So, wherever you are, in whatever garb you are, whether you are in your trousers, with coat, with belt, your socks and shoes, or wearing whatever dress, does not bother, does not matter. What matters most is how are you experiencing deep within yourself? If you have disassociated your doership, you're a sannyasi. If you're performing all your mandatory obligation and still remain immune from those gratification seeking elements, you are a yogi, karma yogi. So that is what is being conveyed through this particular verse to us by the Divine Master Adi Guru Muni Ved Vyas. ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है.